I think the Ministry of External Affairs already hinted that there'll be a bunch of outcomes. There are a number of areas that are going to be talked about. But, in these visits, there are the traditional areas, the G2G sort of areas, which is defense, energy. This will be talked about. But also this time, there's a special focus on the trade piece. And you saw the energy at the India-Russia Trade Forum, where there is a serious deep dive conversation about increasing Indian exports, because we ended up last year with a surge in imports from Russia, a $60 billion deficit, and no good pathways of increasing our exports. So I think that is the conversation that is taking place now. How do we increase these exports? Clearly, the energy surge in imports is not permanent. Right. It's not something that will happen each year. There may be a dip in the next year because of the geopolitics, the prices, the sanctions, and so on. But the attempt is to increase the trade. And, if you compare the Russian relationship with others, like the US and so on, it's a very strong G2G relationship, but the weak link is the B2B, the P2B. In the people-to-people with the US, you have the push of 5 million odd Indo-Americans, and you have, very strong business partnerships. But here, we've had pretty much stagnating exports for a while. 10 years ago, when Modi and Putin met for the first time in 2014, they set up a vision which said that by 2025 they'll have $30 billion of trade.
And across that.
Yeah, and that was an assumption it'll grow at 7-8%. Now, through, let's say, a geopolitical accident of this surge of imports, this more than doubled. But it's still, not a balanced and sustainable increase in trade, and that, I think, is the attempt in this visit to try and have those conversations. And I think there would be a strong opportunity for Indian business in the post-war Russia and Ukraine scenario, because, both these countries might need a lot of reconstruction, might see capital coming in. There could be a lot of business going on there.
So when you talk about, the resumption of more business, or perhaps fixing this trade deficit that Russia has with India, and of course you did mention about the Russia-Ukraine war as well. As we speak, there is, attempt by the Donald Trump administration to mediate, to bring about an end to the war. Will it be safe to assume then that the Eurasia Agreement, the EA-EU agreement for which talks happened last week, that will come into conclusion, that will come into effect perhaps after the war is over?
I think all these agreements are near completion, and in a way all these agreements are linked to the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, whether we talk of the India-US agreement, where we face a 25% extra duty because of the Russian oil issue, or the India-EU conversation, where the EU is looking very carefully at this visit, or even the Eurasian Economic Union. I think each one is dependent, and that's sort of the revenge of geopolitics, right? It's not all about geoeconomics. So this will be a factor, but clearly the war is at an end game point. It's at a sensitive point. There is a surge in battlefield activity, but hopefully the Trump administration will push it and see it through.
Right.
And India is a key stakeholder in ending the war. Absolutely. So I think there will be some frank conversations between Modi and Putin in asking the president to make every effort to end the war, because India, the global south, everyone suffers from this war.
Absolutely. But Ambassador, you spoke about, having some frank conversations. Can we expect any frank conversations around energy, given the fact that, India is facing oil tariffs from the United States, and of course Russia is also, because of the sanctions, is reeling under that kind of pressure. Of course, it is looking at other areas of trade, but oil remains, a key component. How do you think that topic will be broached, and how that topic will be approached? And do you think we can expect any sort of announcements, any significant sort of statements that will be made from the Russian side? And how can India then, balance its interests between the United States and Russia?
Well, we'll see the outcomes tomorrow. That is part of a sensitive balancing that India needs to do. But my assessment would be that Russia would understand India's position. So I don't think Russia will take it amiss if India says that its oil companies have reduced oil imports given all these challenges and are will resume them when these challenges go away. But the real serious conversation India should be having is with the United States, and I'm sure India is having that conversation because it's a very unfair move on the US part. But somehow I feel Trump and Trump's administration have painted themselves in a corner.